Shalom, brethren. This is Family Altar Forum 191, and the title is Israel in Egypt. Israel in Egypt. The Israelites went into Egypt through Jacob and his household as they fetched for corn. They found Joseph there in Egypt as deputy Pharaoh. God had informed Abraham that his descendants would be in a strange land for 430 years in Genesis 15 and verse 13. Whereas they went in Egypt as 70 persons or 70 souls, they multiplied exponentially and they became into millions. They became a threat and were oppressed by Pharaoh in Egypt. They cried out to God, and he prepared and called Moses in the burning bush to come and help him liberate them and take them to the land of Canaan. We are going to read Genesis 15 verse 3, Genesis 46 verse 1 to 4, and verse 27, and then Exodus chapter 1, the whole of it, if God wills, and then Genesis chapter 3 verse 1 to verse 12. Let's begin by reading Genesis chapter 15 and verse 13. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. That is God telling Abraham beforehand that his descendants are going to go to Egypt for 400 years, and then God will judge Egypt. As we know that he did judge Egypt. And that is why today Egypt is not a superpower, but then it was a superpower. If you are used to discipline a child of God, God turns upon you to judge you. It is very clear and biblical. Never be used to judge a child of God, because God will turn his torch of judgment upon you. Let's now read Genesis 46 verse 1 to 4. And Israel took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. It is in order to have a special offering to God in times of need. Like this time, Jacob was in need of corn. He needed to make ends meet to make his family survive. And God appeared to him, verse 2, in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go into Egypt. It was God directed for Jacob to take Israel, or to go there as he is Israel with his household. It was God directed. You remember other nations, people are just rising up and going. But in case of this nation of Israel, God talked to Abraham. Now God is talking to Isaac. It is good to be led of the Lord. And when the Lord is leading you and you obeying the Lord, do not care what others are saying. But if you are leading yourself, you have a reason to fear everything. Even a flap of a leaf will make you to fear. So God appears to him in the visions of the night and said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. You can see it's God who is making Israel a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. You can see God will go with them to Egypt, and God will bring them out of Egypt. Please note that. Then we want to jump over into Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1. And now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already, and Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. Joseph died, know that, and all his brethren, and all his generation. So that generation that had come to Egypt from Canaan, they all died. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Know that they increased exceedingly. They became fruitful and multiplied. And we saw that is the command God had given to Adam. That's the command God gave to Noah when he came from the ark, from the flood, that they should be fruitful, multiply, and increase. So these are people that are obeying God. They are not a people who have a stiff neck at this particular time. They are being God. They are being fruitful. They went there 70 and they came out from there maybe between 2 and 4 million. We will see that later. Verse 8. And there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. 400 years is not a joke. Even 100 years or 2, you'll have a lot of people that you do not know. So that is what is happening here. There is a new king who has no idea of who Joseph is and who the Israelites are. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Before we proceed reading this, because it's a long story, let's jump over into the New Testament in the book of Acts chapter 7. Acts chapter 7, this account of Stephen. Stephen is being put to his own defense, and this is what he says in chapter 7 of the book of Acts, verse 1 to verse 4. Then said the high priest, are these things so? And he said, men, brethren, and fathers, hearken. The God of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Charan, and said unto him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. God calls Abraham from Ur of Chaldees in Mesopotamia, and he directs him to where he wanted him to be, and he brings him into the land of Canaan. The Israelites, the Hebrews, the Jews were given the land of Canaan by God himself, and that is a covenant, and something that is covenanted, it cannot be reversed. Verse 3, and said unto him, verse 4, then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans, and dwelt in Charan or Haran, and from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein he now dwell, and he gave him none inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set his foot on. Yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. But he had been there, he passed on there. Abraham had been to Canaan for at least 2 times. When he went to Egypt and then came back, when he came from Ur of Chaldeans, and he had his 5 altars built in Shechem, built in Beersheba, built in Bethel. We had seen all that earlier on. Verse 6, and God spoke on this wise, that a seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage, and entreat them evil for 400 years. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, said God. And after that shall they come forth and serve me in this place. You say the Bible is not true? The Bible is true. What it says, what it prophesies, it fulfills. The Bible is true. This account of Abraham is true. Then let's go back to Exodus chapter 1 and verse 8 now. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. You know, they talk about the tyranny of numbers. This was a tyranny of numbers. The Israelites multiplied even more than Egyptians, and they became a threat. Come on, let us do wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it came to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. You see, this was as a result of fear. We don't act on fear, we act on faith. And we don't be wise against God's counsel of multiplication. So these guys now, they are becoming wise, but it's folly to fight against the multiplication principle of God. So they act out of fear and not out of faith. Verse 11, therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. The more you suppress a child of God, the more God rises up and gives way out for that child of God. Even we leaders, we must be careful. The more we suppress the people of God, the more God rises up for them, because God avenges for them. Luke 18 verse 7 and verse 8. God avenges for his people. So never oppress a child of God. Never afflict someone that fears God. Never afflict someone that gets to pray. And then verse 13, and the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with figure. You can read the rest of the story, but I want to read into chapter 3 and verse 7 and verse 9. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry. They had prayed. They had been afflicted, so they resorted to pray. And they prayed, and that's what I'm saying. As long as people are praying, the oppressors' fetters and chains are going to be cut asunder, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land, unto a good land, and a large, into a land which flows with milk and honey, and to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, Moses, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Hallelujah. So God acts now because someone has suppressed another, and that another has cried out to God. So God comes in and delivers. If you have anyone suppressing you, just make a prayer to God, and God will come and deliver you. You may not know how. They never knew how, but God raised Moses to do that. Until we meet tomorrow, this is John Joy Elias, Maranatha. God bless you. Think on these things and let God give you the understanding. Amen.